Hello. So today we are going to go over independent and dependent clauses as our first kind of new grammar rule for the second semester. What we're doing for our next unit is we are going to kind of do a big grammar push. And much like the Pearl, you are all going to be responsible for teaching a grammar lesson. Ooh, so exciting. So, what I'm going to do today, obviously, is you need this information because independent and dependent clauses are going to help you with all the other grammar rules. But I'm also going to model kind of what I'm expecting from those lessons. So here we go. The first thing you need, much like last time, is an objective, right? So by the end of this lesson, hopefully students will be able to identify independent and dependent clauses in order to use this knowledge for future grammar rules. So this is kind of our key component to make sure all the rest of the grammar rules make sense and that we can identify what we need to identify. So in your lesson, we need the objective first. Yay! We're pros at it now. All right, let's go into the next part, which is we need some definitions. So, in order to identify independent and dependent clauses, we need to know some words, right? So, I have clause, independent clause, dependent clause, and common dependent marker words. Um, Feel free, this is a video, obviously, to pause it and copy down those definitions in your notes and then just start it up again, right? The first thing we need to define is a clause. A clause is a unit of grammatical organization that contains a subject, which is our noun, so person, place, thing, idea, and predicate. Our predicate always begins with our verb. So, what is subject doing, right? Remember, verbs are action words and they're also states of being. So, remember, I was hungry. Was is our verb there. Then we have our clause. So a clause is basically right under what a sentence would be. A sentence is our first unit of grammatical organization. Then a clause is we're breaking down that sentence into clauses. So an independent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, and it expresses a complete thought. So notice this is bold. An independent clause is a complete sentence. When we're identifying clauses, if it's independent, that means we have a complete sentence. We can put a period on it, call it a day. A dependent clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb but does not express a complete thought. A dependent clause cannot be a sentence. And then often a dependent clause is marked by a dependent marker word. So, more often than not, you're going to have some words that clue you in on it being a dependent clause. And we'll go over those in a second. But again, here's some bold words for you. A dependent clause is a sentence fragment. So if you've ever had on your paper, you've had written fragment or anything like that, that's what's happening. You have a dependent clause, it's not expressing a complete thought, it's not working. All right, so those common dependent marker words, you do not need to memorize these, but you should become familiar with them, right? You should have them and you should kind of recognize when they're being used. So we have a few here. These are not all of them. We have after, although, as if, because, before, even if, even though, if, in order to, since, though, unless, until, whatever, when, whenever, whether, and while. All right, these are our common ones. Um, like I said, we we don't need to memorize that. Today we're going to go over a way that we can test to see if it's a dependent clause, even if we forget what a dependent marker word is. All right. So now that we have the definitions, we obviously need to take those definitions in order to help us identify what? independent clauses and dependent clauses are. So how do we do this? We're going to draw it. Now, I'm going to have you draw it in your notes just to get the practice. And when you're actually practicing this skill, obviously use this method. I think it's a pretty easy way to tell, especially as you're getting used to really looking into what an independent and dependent clause is. So, example one, we have Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. First, we need to make sure we have a clause. So, do we have an action? Yes, we have studied, right? So, studied is our verb. And do we have somebody doing the studying? Do we have a subject? Yep, Jim studying, right? So, we have a subject, we have a verb, we have a rest of the predicate. And how we know that this is all a predicate is that we don't have another verb. So in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, we don't have another action happening, which means this verb starts the rest of this predicate, which means we have a clause. Now we need to determine if it's independent or dependent. So we're going to draw it. Here's my little beautiful drawing over here. And every image you see, I drew by hand because I'm an artist, right? Remember that. So I want to look at everything in this sentence and I want to see if I can draw something from it. If I can, and my picture is complete, we're going to have an independent clause. It's a complete thought, which means it's a complete sentence, which means it's independent clause. So first things first, I got to draw Jim. Yay, there's Jim. He's happy. He likes chemistry, right? Then I have to draw that he's studying. So I drew some books here because I don't know. That's what I think of when I think of somebody studying. Is they got some books in front of them. They have those books open. Then I need in the sweet shop. So he is located in this shop for sweets. Wow, what a shop! It's a very famous sweet shop if you can't tell. And then I have this for his chemistry quiz. So now I have a little more information of what he's studying for. So I'm going to give him a little beaker. I don't know how much the sweet shop appreciates him having a beaker in their store, but Jim is kind of crazy, right? So I have Jim, I've studied, I have the sweet shop, and for his chemistry quiz, I don't have anything left out. This picture is complete. I have all the information I need. I was able to represent every part of this clause here, which means, ta-da, it's independent. I have a complete sentence. I can throw a period on here, and we're good to go. So let's do example 2. Oops. Of course it's going through. Oh, it says example 1. Sorry. Should say example 2, but you'll be fine. All right, example 2, when Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. So we need to make sure we have a clause first. Do we have a verb? Yep, studied. It's there again. Do we have someone who is doing the studying? Yep, we have Jim. So we have a subject, we have a verb. Then after the verb, we have this predicate, and we have to make sure there's no other verbs, right? So in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, nope, we're good to go. We have a predicate. That means we have a clause. Now, we have this word at the beginning, and maybe we don't remember that it's a dependent marker word, right? I told you don't have to memorize those. So maybe we need to test it to see what the heck's going on. It could be an adjective, right? This could be an adjective of Jim, so we don't want to just discard it, right? We need to figure out what does it help us with for this clause. So let's draw again. We have good old Jim coming back. Jim is studying with his books. He's in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. And he has that beaker again, right? So I have Jim studying in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. Now I have to look at this word for more information. When, all right. Is he studying during the day, the morning, bright sun going on? Maybe. Is he studying at night, full moon that night? I do not know. All right. I have no idea which one to choose, which means I cannot complete this picture, which means it is not a complete thought, which means I have a dependent clause. It depends on something else to make sure I have all the information I need. Since I don't have any information about when Jim is studying or what happened when Jim studied, I cannot complete this picture, making this clause dependent on something else. So if you were to put a period right here, it would be marked a sentence fragment, right? Because I don't have enough information. All right. Again, similar, but it has that extra word. And then if we looked back at our list, obviously when is a dependent marker word. The last one, example 3. When Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, it was very noisy. Let's check it. Do we have a clause? I have a verb. Studied. Wonderful. I got to look for the rest of it. In the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, it was very noisy. Uh-oh. Right? We have a state of being verb here. Am, are, was, right? I was hungry. That means I have another verb. So each of my verbs starts a new predicate. First of all, I need a subject for each verb. So studying, we still got our buddy Jim who's doing the studying, right? Was, what am I talking about? I'm talking about it. So it is my subject and there's my verb. Since I have a subject verb, that means I have 2 clauses here. In order to tell if this is a complete sentence, I have to identify both clauses to see what's going on. So I have in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. That's the predicate to my first clause because it follows our verb. And very noisy is my predicate for my second clause because, again, it starts with a verb and it doesn't have another verb. It's everything after that. 2 clauses, wonderful. We have our fun word when. Again, maybe we have to figure it out because we don't remember that it's a dependent clause or a dependent marker word. As we can see, I have 2 pictures over here now because I have 1 clause and 2 clauses. Clause 1, there's our buddy Jim. Jim's a great studier. He is, studying for his chemistry quiz and he's in that sweet shop, right? Once again, I have this final word when, and I don't know when he's studying. All right, so that's my first clause. My second clause, it was very noisy. Now, we can draw it because we know that it refers to the sweet shop, right? So my it is sweet shop and was very noisy. What I'm imagining when I see that is a bunch of people there and they're talking, right? The sweet shop is packed. Everybody's wanting some chocolate and they're just blah, 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 blah. That is a complete thought, right? I have all the words covered. So complete picture. Sweet shop, noisy. Up here, we have our dependent, right? We have these question marks. We don't know how to finish that picture. So we have a dependent clause and we have an independent clause. However, that doesn't tell us about this entire thing as a whole. So what you always need to remember is that a dependent clause plus an independent clause makes an independent clause. Our dependent clause is depending on this independent clause to make the whole thing independent. So this entire thing, we have a complete sentence because our dependent clause isn't standing alone. Now, if you put a dependent clause with another dependent clause, it's not going to work for us. All right? But anytime a dependent clause is paired with an independent clause, you have a complete sentence. Okay. What you need to do now is you're going to go practice, and we're going to check on Monday to see where we're at with this objective. So you have a practice sheet that you are going to grab from the sub today, and you're going to identify the independent and dependent clauses. And I want you using that drawing method just for this first practice. And after that, you can just kind of imagine. what the heck's going on. All right. If you have any questions today, let me know. Complete that practice. It's a short one for Monday, or for Tuesday, sorry. And then the rest of the time, make sure you're working on your poem and song analysis. Have a great day.